Well, hello, welcome everyone. Sebaidi, Nyajang, buenas noches. Thank you all for being here tonight to join us. It's great to see people who care about the future of our kids in Fresno Unified School District. You guys are going to have the opportunity to hear tonight from some folks who would like to be part of being champions for your kids in Fresno Unified School District. And so it's great that everybody is here together. And so first, I'd love to see if we could have a round of applause just for all of the candidates coming out tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. My name is Zach Dara, and I am the Executive Director of Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries, or FIRM, and I will be co-moderating tonight with
Rachel Coots. I am Manager of Educator Leadership with Go Public Schools Fresno. I am really excited for all of you to be here, and thank you for coming. Before we get started, I would like to introduce some of my little friends to lead us in the flag salute. Girls. Got it. Hold it.
Everyone, please stand up and put your right hand on your heart.
And then
Ready, salute.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, girls.
Since 2010, the Building Healthy Communities Schools Action Team has worked together to transform our school district for the betterment of our community. Education is a leading indicator for good health for all in our communities. When our students succeed, our communities thrive, and that's the bottom line.
Tonight's event is brought to you in partnership with Go Public Schools Fresno, Parent Institute for Quality Education, the Fresno Center for New Americans, the Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries, and Californians for Justice. As a coalition, our work is focused on schools, school policies, educational equity and access for students and their families in Fresno.
We know that there are a lot of amazing people here in the room tonight, parents, students, and otherwise, but we would love to recognize one of our current Fresno Unified School District board members, Ms. Carol Mills. Please stand so we can say hello to you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. She's not currently running, so it's great that she's here to just hear about her future colleagues, whoever they might be. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much, others. I saw Brandon Vang from the Sanger Unified School Board somewhere. I don't know where he went. Brandon, are you here? Brandon? No? Yes, okay. Brandon, thanks for being here. Maybe he's in the bathroom. Oh, he's outside getting some pizza. That's okay. But thank you all for being here. It's really great that you're joining us tonight for this great occasion. Oh, hold on, it's still me. And like I reminded you before, time constraints, there's, short timeline for everybody. I know you have to talk about the things that you're most passionate about in a very short amount of time. We would greatly appreciate everybody to stay on the time schedule. We have Jack here. Unfortunately, someone has to be this guy. He's the guy who's going to tell you that it's time to stop talking. And it's time to move on to the next candidate. And so we would greatly appreciate it if candidates would spend 90 seconds on the questions. You're going to have 60 seconds for your opening remarks and then 90 seconds for your closing remarks. So I know you have plenty more to say than that, but if you could please just keep it focused on those things that are most important to you, we would greatly appreciate it. So
This is a great problem to have. We are fortunate to have every candidate represented here this evening. Each area will take turns with starting. We will move alphabetically through each area, starting with Area 1 with Robert Fuentes. So let's get started.
All right. Thank you once again for being here, and now it's time for your opening statements. So we would love to know who you are and why you are running for the Fresno Unified School District School Board. And you have 60 seconds to answer.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start off by thanking our host for having us here tonight and thanking everyone in the audience for being here. I strongly believe that increasing community engagement is a foundational step in improving our schools, so I want to thank you all for being a part of that. My name is Robert Fuentes, and I am a civil rights and employment attorney by trade. So I spend my days representing folks who have been subjected to discrimination, harassment, retaliation, wage and hour violations, and who in some form or another are trying to vindicate their rights. And I'm running for Fresno School Board because I believe that every child has a right to a quality education, regardless of race, regardless of zip code, regardless of immigration status. And that right is embedded in our constitutional law. And I believe that it's incumbent upon all leaders from the school board on up to not only defend that right, but to look for policies and solutions to actually affirmatively implement it
Thank
for
you
all
so
students,
much, Robert.
and in particular for students for whom historically it has not been upheld. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We're going to move on to Keisha Thomas from Area 1.
Yes, Keisha Thomas. I am a teacher by choice. I have an administrative credential, so I've been a vice principal, and I've also been a careers director. Education has been my path. My grandmother was an educator for 35 years, and my mother also worked for the school, so I am third generation. I believe in our system. I believe in Fresno Unified. And for that reason, and all the fighting that I've done for all my kids in my classroom is the reason that I am running for Area 1. Edison is my district, and I've lived in my district for over 35 years. I've never wavered. I give back to my community in my district. I feed the homeless in my district every month. I have a ministry that will be 40 years old next month. My grandmother started it, and I am finishing. And I also bring my kids into this ministry. So West Fresno and our schools are my life, and I have been embedded in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha. We're going to move on to Valerie Davis from Area 3.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you, Rachel, and thank you for all the parents that are here tonight in the community. And I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet with you not only in your office and in your areas that you represent, but here tonight. I'm Valerie Davis. I'm a former teacher in Fresno Unified, as is my husband, my mother-in-law, my daughter, and I'm proud to say we're 3 generations of teachers in Fresno Unified. Well, I've been on the board. We've seen great gains in this district. We have started, when I started 14 years ago, we had a graduation rate of 63%. Last year, 2018, we had 84.5%. We have a number of things we need to do in this district, and I'm very proud of where we're going, and I'm very proud of the hard work that our teachers have been able to do for us. And I would appreciate your vote in continuing working for this great district. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. We'll move on to Carl Diaz, also running in Area 3.
Hello, thank you everybody for being here, and thank you for hosting this wonderful event. My name's Carl Diaz, and I've been a teacher for 25 years. It doesn't seem like it could have gone by so fast, but it did. I also was a classroom aide at Jefferson Elementary when I was still going to Fresno State. We have a lot of statistics in front of us, and that is the reason why I'm running for this position. The school board touts many accomplishments, but what I see on the streets of Fresno and in the schools and in the faces of our young people, I don't see success as much as they would claim. I see what's in these statistics, and these statistics are not that good. The graduation rate, yes, it went up, but it went up when the KC requirement for graduation was eliminated by Governor Brown. Okay, these will skew these things, all the statistics, and that's why I want to run, and I really appreciate your vote because I really want to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Please hold your applause till the very end for everybody. Thank you. We're going to move on to Mark Ratchford, also running in Area 3.
Hello, my name is Mark Ratchford. I am from Fresno, born in the state.
Please speak closer to the mic so everybody can hear you.
Born in the
Sorry,
state. My family's been here in Fresno for decades, since 1906. I've been in the water conditioning and purification business for over 30 years, and I am running for this position because I, as a lot of other people, see a lot of things wrong with our schools. Our graduation rate, that's great what she just said, but the reality is kids, when they graduate at high school level, they're only at 20% of them are at grade level when they graduate. That is not acceptable. That is below failing. I spoke with some people while I was walking around last Sunday. Talked to a fellow that graduated from Fresno schools. The man could not read what I was passing out. That is not good at all. Not good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Please hold your applause till the very end. Thank you, everybody. I know there's great answers up here, but let's wait for everybody at the end. We're going to move on to Christopher de la Cerda, trustee in Area 4.
Good evening. I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Christopher de la Cerda, as pointed out. I am an educator. I've been at SO for 34 years. I have come from 3 generations of educators. There are almost 20 members of my family in education, my immediate family in education, that serve almost all exclusively in Fresno Unified School District. I'm a special educator, and I decided that at some point I needed to step up and bring the experience that I had as an educator onto the boardroom. And my whole position when I started was to be able to continue to focus specifically on our students and on the needs of our students. I grew up in West Fresno. I graduated in North Fresno. I experienced, between those travelings, between that experience, some not so great things. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to bring back to Central Fresno those aspects that were missing in our district, whether it was financial, whether it was structural. In fact, you're sitting in one of the buildings that I helped bring back here at Patino High School. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope to get your support so I can continue my service on the school board.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to move on to Veva Islas, also running in Area 4.
Bueno, para empezar, les quiero dar la bienvenida a todos los padres que están aquí que hablan español. Mi nombre es Veva Islas. Good evening. My name is Veva Islas. I'm a child of farm laborers. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from a university. My story is proof of the transformative power of a good education, and that's what I want to fight for. Fresno Unified School District, the McLean region, specifically needs a school board member that is willing to step up and take action for its students. I believe that despite our improving graduation rates, that we are still failing because our children are not college or career ready. So if we are truly going to serve at creating greater equity in our community and fighting for justice, we need to help make sure that our children are prepared to succeed in their life. This is what I would like to work on, and I'm hoping to represent you in this region. I believe that children of color deserve to have somebody who is fighting for them. So thank you.
Thank you, Veva. We're going to move on to Terry Edwards, who's running in Area 7.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the coalition for having us tonight. I want to say that I got to choose my passion as my profession. I've been an educator for the last 25 years. I've been a student in Fresno Unified. I've been a teacher, a vice principal, a principal. I now work with parents with Parent University. I think I see a few of you familiar faces. And I started as a little girl playing school with my friends, who some of them are here today and remember that. But I do want to say that I am willing to take the next step. I think that an educator is what's needed. And the other thing is, if you check, this is like applying for a job. Check our references. Check those that are endorsing us. Check our family, our friends, people that really know us, because those are the people that you want on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We're going to move on to Nazreen Johnson, who's also running in Area 7.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nasreen Johnson. I am I really enjoy coming here and looking out into this audience. A number of you I went to school with. I sit on community meetings with, and I've worked with you. Some of you I've even met at parent clubs. And so I appreciate the time you're spending to come and listen to us. I moved to Fresno when I was in the 2nd grade. I'm a product of Fresno Unified, and I attended Bullard Region schools. My father is an immigrant. My mother was an early childhood educator. I have 2 kids that are in the district attending Fresno Unified schools, and I'm willing to work hard for our kids. I think we need somebody on the board, and I'm willing to be that person who will put their sweat in for our kids, who will do the work and study so that we're making positive choices that move our children forward because they deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasreen. Okay, we're going to move on to Amanda Carabian, who's also running in Area 7.
Thank you. I am running because I believe that families, educators, and community members deserve to be part of the collaboration process when decisions are being made that are impacting our students, our schools, and our communities. As a parent, I have advocated and worked with district and school administration to develop a program to combat bullying, to bring a training to educators, and also develop an awareness initiative. I would like to utilize my previous employment in the loss and protection field so that we can keep a focus on safety and ensure that we are being proactive and not reactive, and that we are being responsive to our individual school sites. I have 2 boys, one who has special needs. Both attend Area 7 schools of Tenaya and Bullard. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. And last but not least, Terry Sladek, also running in Area 7.
Good evening. My name's Terry Sladek. I am a retired Marine. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2013. Prior to that, in 1990, I moved to Fresno. I chose to live here. I chose to get married here. I chose to have 4 children here. I bought my first and second houses here. I've spent a lot of time away from here because due to the post 9/11 conflict, I've spent years in Iraq and Afghanistan and places over there. But again, 2013, I'm making up with my family for that. I'm running because I continually see the things happening at FUSD where I've had my children now for 19 consecutive years including now, and the accountability is not good. Things happen and no one is ever held truly accountable for it. Just because somebody says, yes, that's my fault, doesn't mean we just move on to the next slide. And part of that, in concert, is transparency. There's things going on that no one knows about. A French class, was just canceled at one of the Northwest Fresno schools. Thank you.
I'm sorry, thank you. All right, well, if you guys would like to give your applause now, a lot of great folks up here.
So we've selected 3 representatives from our community to ask some questions for the panel. Our first representative is Lorena Moreno. She is a Fresno Unified parent, and she's going to be asking her question in Spanish, so I will tell you what the question is when she's done. This one.
Actually, I have a right mind. It's like Sam, but my voice. Hola, buenas noches a todos los señores representantes. Mi nombre es Lorena Moreno, madre de 3 niños aprendices de inglés en el área de Fresno. Sé que muchos de ustedes me están entendiendo, ¿verdad? Si yo votara por usted, ¿cuáles serían sus estrategias para alcanzar más de 50% de padres involucrados en la toma de decisiones de LCAP? Necesitamos talleres educativos y que tomen nuestra participación real. Gracias.
So her question is asking, do you feel that parents have a clear line to effectively communicate with the board and the district? If elected, how will you make improvements to discuss their thoughts and concerns about student achievement and district accountability? That's the question she's supposed to ask. Would you like to translate?
Let's have one that's not on the board.
O you want someone? ¿Me prestas el papel para traducirlo? Gracias. Okay, if we were to vote for you, what would be the strategies to reach more than 50% of the parents who are involved in the decision-making of LCAP? We also need workshops, educative workshops that will take our participation seriously.
So we'll start with Valerie Davis from Area 3. Right there.
Thank you. Well, how do you reach parents? In our Fresno Unified, we have what we call Parent University, and Parent University shares...
Can you speak a little bit closer?
Parent University shares what parents need to know in elementary school, middle school, and high school, what their students are learning. We also have Barrios United coming to our parent coffees and Parent University, and they share information with them. But I've had the opportunity to attend because I was a parent in Fresno Unified. My last child graduated in 2017. It took me 21 years to get out of the elementary school because my 3 daughters were at one elementary school. Sitting on school site council and PTA is very important too. So parents have the opportunity to meet with us or with the decision making and learning everything through the district, through Parent University.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, I'm sorry, the audience isn't going to get to have feedback. You can talk about it later. Mr. Diaz?
Thank you for asking that question right off the bat. We need to really truly work to redesignate our kids. We need to have our kids successful. When our kids aren't redesignated, they can't take A through G classes, meaning that they can't start off at a 4-year university. That's a tragedy. We need to make sure that our funds are being spent because of those kids and other kids who are low income or on foster youth. We get over $11,000 per child, and this is a tremendous amount of money. Okay, now it needs to be focused on our children. Like the study said at the ACLU put out, they're not listening. We need to have our voices heard by the board. If the board won't listen, who will? You have to have people who know. I am from the Southeast. I am in the area where most of these kids are coming from. Okay, they have really hard problems that we should be addressing, and we should be addressing it by focusing our money and our resources with more paraeducators and more teachers, and emphasize programs like the dual immersion program that is so successful but isn't touted. I don't understand that. We have to embrace bilingualism, be it Spanish, be it Hmong, be it Armenian, whatever. We have to do it, and we have to do it now and make kids proud of where they are from.
Thank you. Mr. Ratchford?
Parents need to be more involved with their children. When they are, their children do more. They do a lot better. My wife is a teacher at Story Elementary, and parents seem to come to pick up their children when they do their homework. There's not anyone helping them do their homework. Unfortunately, not all parents do help their children. I would like to see more parent involvement. I personally would like to go to every one of the schools that I will be representing and spend a day at each school, hopefully every month, and watch what the children are actually going through. I understand most of them are kind of bored because they're just not being challenged enough in school. And I know that if you work harder, if you have more things to do, more homework to do, you're more apt to learn and be more proud of yourselves when you come back to school. Just yesterday, my wife was telling me about a little boy that he put his head down because he couldn't do the work, and he doesn't have anyone at home to help him. And I mean, it breaks your heart when you hear these things.
Thank you. Mr. De La Cerda.
That's a good question. I just met with staff a couple weeks ago about this issue. One of the things you have to understand, when LCAP process came out, there was no direction on how we're going to do this. So the district came up with the plan that we have now, and it's actually been an effective plan, and the state considers it an effective plan. But is it the best plan? No, because like all things, it was meant to grow, it was meant to be changed, it was meant to be adjusted. And that's one of the things that we've had this discussion before, and I've had it with staff. How do we change the LCAP process? How do we make sure that we engage our community in better ways? It's an ongoing process, and definitely we need to have the community involved in making the decision. Definitely we need to be able to adjust to what the community is asking for us. And so it was never really meant to be a process in place and it's set in cement. Because the whole idea of in education is you change, you move, you form to what you need to address, the issues you need to address. And so for me, one of the things that I have done, I've met with staff and asked, what do we need to do to better ourselves, and hearing what the community is asking us to do with our LCAP monies. What do we need to do to make sure we're including those voices of all our stakeholders? And so this has not been lost on me, and it's something that we will continue to change. And the new staff that has taken over for Tammy Townsend is saying, well, we bring us ideas, thoughts, meet with people that we can see what we can do in order to make sure that we're addressing these issues. Because it is, as an educator, as a teacher, I really liked parent involvement and parents' information. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Mrs. Islas?
To share.
Great, thank you. Well, I want to begin by commending Lorena for having the fortitude to ask the question that she really wanted to ask. And like Lorena and the beautiful Hmong mothers that are here with interpretation, this is exactly the accommodations that we need to do more consistently so that our communities of multi-language needs are participating. I want to make sure that you all know that the LCAP that was submitted by Fresno Unified School District did receive a complaint by the American Council of Civil Liberties. And it was found to be egregious in serving the students that most needed to be served by this LCAP process. In fact, they were cited and they were required to redistribute dollars that they were budgeting for other issues. So we do need to have a process that allows our families to fully engage. You need to clearly understand the process for it. There is a process that's been outlined, and if you read that report, it gives you a step-by-step in terms of everything that needs to happen. And public participation is required. Parents need to know thoroughly how the decisions are being made about where these dollars are being invested. So we do that by making sure that they understand. We do that by making sure that we're translating our materials. We do that by making sure that we have meetings at times where they can participate, and that we're providing childcare so that they can come with their younger children to participate. Or maybe that we provide transportation assistance so that they can get there. Or perhaps we redesign the method that we're getting that information so that they can state their concerns through emails, through online systems. I think there is a lot that we can do to improve the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think sometimes we assume that maybe everyone in the audience knows what we're talking about when we talk about things, and that's one of the things we need to be clear about. LCAP is the Local Accountability Plan for schools to use funding at their sites. And there are areas, specific areas that need to be addressed, which is low-income students, English learners, and also foster youth. The guidelines that are there that we should be abiding by is we have to hear from the public. We have had parent meetings, but if the perception of parents is that they're not being heard, then we need to do it better. Whether we think we're doing a good job or not is beside the point. If we're not, if we're not connecting with parents, then something is wrong. I wrote an article in the AXA magazine about that called Communicating, and then I struck out communicating and I called it connecting with parents. There's a difference. So I think that perception, we need to do more listening and less talking.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson?
Thank you. That was a really great question. As a parent, I attended the LCAP process last fall, winter, to participate and see what it looks like, how we're involving parents, to identify ways that we can do it better. I had heard that from others who had attended other meetings that it wasn't great, that they didn't feel that their voice got heard, that they were kind of shuttled into one direction about the dollars and how they would be spent and what we needed for our schools. I put literature over here, and I want to point something out. I put my personal cell phone number on everything that I hand out, because I think the only way to lead is by communicating directly to the folks that we serve. I say, this is the same number my kids have, so I'm going to pick it up and look at it. Having that direct feedback is critical because, as I've been canvassing the neighborhoods, I talk to staff, I talk to administrators, I talk to our teachers, I talk to our families directly, one-on-one. And when I'm doing so, I hear the things that aren't being filtered up through the chain of command in our district, and it's critical. So I would, because the question was, what would you do to make it different? What I would do is I would make sure that, I'm accessible and available to the community so that they can bring their concerns directly to me if they choose to. Thank you.
Okay, so giving parents a strategy to have a pathway of communication is really a goal of mine. One of the things that I'd like to establish when I become trustee is to have individual school site meetings. I think what's important about that is that information that we can gather from individual school sites is going to be specific to helping that school get what it needs, whether it is tools in the classroom, whether it's safety concerns. We need to be having those meetings individually. And as the trustee, I plan on having those meetings with each individual school site as often as possible. I think one of the major obstacles for trustees is how removed they are. So I think accessibility is very important. I believe that the layers between the trustee and the voters needs to be eliminated. Voters need to feel that their voices are heard. Their voices need to be brought into that boardroom, and the decisions need to be impacted by that. We need to be listening to our educators, we need to be listening to our families, and we need to be listening to our sites.
But before I begin, could I ask the young man with the cards to center himself? Because some of us don't have the peripheral vision that we used to. Maybe in the center, sir. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay, we can start now. Thank you. I interpret this question, frankly, as an accountability issue, all right? As many of you know, Fresno Unified School District is the largest employer between Sacramento and Los Angeles. $1.3 billion, 10,000 employees. Less than half of those employees are teachers. So I sit here as a retired Marine, understanding, and some of you hopefully you'll get this, from the first instant we're standing on those yellow footprints, you are accountable for everything you do and you fail to do. So when I'm in this trustee position, I will be walking around, and again, I'm a retired Marine, This is my full-time 50-hour-a-week job, which will be like a vacation after 120-hour weeks in Afghanistan. So walk around and sit there and go, okay, who's supposed to have done this? What's the system in place? Okay, accountable for everything we do and everything we fail to do. That's what this is an issue of. We have 6,000 non-teachers in this district. What are they doing in terms of these programs? And frankly, you know, I'm hesitant to accept it was a working document that was meant to be changed. Where's the sense of urgency? This is our kids, my kids, your kids. It's a sense of urgency. Get things done to help our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuentes?
I started off this evening speaking about how imperative I think it is to increase our engagement with parents and students, with educators, and with the community at large. And I started off my talk today with that because, one, it's required by law when we're talking about LCAP funding, but two, when we're talking about school board decision-making in general, having that engagement leads to better student outcomes. So I think we do need to improve our engagement with community. I think we need to make sure that it's culturally and linguistically competent. I love that we have translators here tonight. That's very, very important. And as a trustee, I plan to have periodic town halls and forums in my area on a regular basis. And by partnering with community-based organizations and partnering with the faith community, and actually going out to where community is. We can't just sit back and expect community to come to us. We have to make sure we're going out there and finding people where they're at.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. LCAP was one of my babies when I was a vice principal. So I think the question was, how do we plan to communicate with the parents? That was right. Okay. So what I did for my school, and we were small, we weren't a huge school, so it may have been a little bit easier for me. We have 74,000, I think we had more like 5,000 kids. So I always made sure I reached out to my parents, I made phone calls, I let them know when meetings were happening, I made sure that I emailed, and we told kids, and we sent letters home with our kids to make sure that the parents were being reached. It's imperative that our parents play a part in our school system because it helps our kids to grow. And even if there's a language barrier, we need to make plans for that. And we always did in my meetings. I had a Hmong translator and I had a Spanish translator. So everything that I did, my PowerPoints, everything reflected what needed to be done to make sure I reached those parents. And that's what we need to do for our schools, is make sure that we are transparent and that all of our parents are being reached, because it's wholeheartedly a part of our district becoming a great district.
Thank you. I would like to now invite my friend, Melanie Lee, to ask you a question for the Student Voice.
Hello, my name is Melanie Lee. I'm a student at Roosevelt High School. One of the questions I have is, in the area of student safety, the lack of real adults relationships on campus, and inequity in suspensions and expulsions rates are considered for students in Fresno. If elected, what kind of policy would you enact to address these issues? Thank you.
So she's asking about inequity in suspension and expulsion rates, school safety, the lack of real adult relationships on campus, and them being concerns for students. So she's asking, what policies would you enact to address these issues? Sorry.
And we'll begin with Chris De La Cerda in Area 4 for this round of questioning.
Thank you. Very good question when it comes to safety. I was just asked about that yesterday, about safety, and we have this perception that we aren't exactly the safest district, and that's not necessarily true. We've increased our policing. We've done some physical issues of safety when it comes to cameras on board on our schools, campuses, lighting. But we also have done other things like restorative practices. we've had implicit bias training. I think some of these things that we have to do and to enact to make sure that we bring down what we've already done in bringing down our suspension and expulsions, to realize why we're doing that. And as an educator, I can tell you the biggest impact that has for that issue itself is relationships between staff, or the adults, and the students. I know that it's made a difference in my classrooms if I've reached out to my students and I have a relationship with them, no matter how small. And we've done this at McLean. I've seen the teachers and the students ask about building the relationship. So I think that's one of the key things that we have to do. All the other issues that will be addressed, all the other efforts that we make will come once we begin to look and focus on the training, like the implicit biases that we have, or the issues that we bring into the schools, and recognizing where our students come from, the background they have, the relationships that we need to build. Because I can tell you, in my classrooms, I've had gang members that I've had no issues with, but it's because we have been able to make relationships happen.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you. Viva?
So what I can tell you is that having more police, having more cameras does not make people feel safer. What makes people feel safer is being valued and feeling that they belong in our schools, that they are trusted, that they have relationships with the adults that are around them. And so in order for us to achieve that, there are really important things that we have to work on. And one of them is reducing our class sizes so that our teachers can dedicate more time to forming those critical relationships with the students that are in their class, so that students will feel comfortable being able to tell them what is happening in their lives, why maybe their homework isn't getting done, why maybe they missed class, and so that our teachers are in positions to then help them. So we do need to invest in those resources that are supporting relationship-centered learning, that are supporting restorative justice, school psychologist resources that remove some of the stress from our teachers and allow them to do the things that they were passionate about and why they got involved in education. Those are things that I think, to me, will have longer lasting impacts for our children. I was inspired by my 6th grade teacher because, one, he was the first teacher that I ever had that was like me. He was Latino. He was from a farm worker background. He inspired me to a master's degree from the 6th grade because he believed in me. That's what I want for the children in my district, and those are the resources that I think we need to commit to.
Thank you, Viva. Terry?
Yes, the social emotional component is an area we really need to address. We have more social emotional counselors now in Fresno Unified, but the relationship part of what we do with kids is really has not manifested as well as it could. I mentioned earlier the connection with parents that I have, the article that I wrote, and I address areas such as when we connect with parents. It's not just at back to school night, it's not just, although those things are important, we open house, things like that, but the connection with parents, and in the department that I work in now, is very critical because the parents are the ones that are going to make sure that they are involved and that their kids are getting what they need. One of our core values is having a safe and safe learning environment for staff and for students. This is for everyone, but also just emphasizing that that is important, and that even including the workers that we have, our staffs, is very important to make sure that they are also involved. Community, we need your input though. We don't have all the answers either, and we shouldn't think that we do have all the answers. We want your input, and on the board, I will make sure that your input is heard.
Thank you, Terry. Nasreen?
All right. So it's a complicated question. You know, how do we ensure safety? And I feel like the student was asking, how do we make sure our students feel safe on campus? And I would say that it is relationship based. I know I didn't feel safe on campus. I attended 2 high schools in our district. And the first high school, I kind of bumped around. I didn't feel like anyone even knew who I was or made an effort to get to know me. The second high school, I thrived. I was able to, connect with a few of our staff members. One was a counselor, one was a teacher, and that made all the difference for me in the world. I went to my daughter's campus, she's a 7th grader. 7th grade is a hard time. That's a struggle for many of our students. It's that weird in-between years. And I talked to the security guard. It turns out he knows my daughter, not because she's a bad kid, but because he watches out for all of our kids. He builds relationships with our kids. And so it's not just about, our staff. It's about making sure that we have enough support on campus so that every kid can have somebody on campus who knows their name, who knows, their temperament, who knows what they're interested in, and who cares. Having people care about our kids is a community thing. So when we, I know a number of our local organizations work with our kids on campus, and that is critical, because it is a community effort to make sure our kids have what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasreen. Amanda?
You know what, this question for me is really challenging, and I don't know, if I have the answer to the question of how do we turn around the inequity in suspensions. To me as a parent, that's frightening because, you're looking at children that may be suspended and some that aren't. I know that my son actually had an experience at Tenaya where 2 children, he was included, that were involved in a back and forth, and he was actually sent back to his class and the other student wasn't. And he actually came home and was asking me why was I treated differently? And, I think as your trustee, that's something that we would have to really sit down. We would need to talk about the experiences that are happening within the individual schools. We need to talk to the teachers, the educators, the people on campus to really figure out where the misfire is. How are we not... it's about equity. If one child does something, then both need to be dealt with in the same manner. So, my time is up.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much. Terry.
The reason I'm sitting in this chair as a candidate tonight goes back to this topic. A year ago, October of 17, during a class change in a Northwest Fresno school, a teacher found a letter saying that I am going to kill, and my son's name was inserted. This resulted in a child being expelled, but it also brought forth to me the information that nobody really knew, from the vice principal level to the principal level to downtown. Nobody fully understood and was using the exact same rules in this case. So that led to further digging on my part and having the principal of this school, as well as the superintendent of FUSD, admit to me, and here's the scenario. If we took a dozen senior teachers in this school and sat them down and said, what happens after this event happens? What are the roles and responsibilities of every actor, the students, the teacher, administrators, what do they do? And know how many different answers we get? 7, 8 out of a dozen. So the first thing to fix this is everybody who works at FUSD needs to understand the same rule book. How are people going to know how to organize themselves in society or on a highway if they're all obeying a different road rule speed limit? So the first thing is everyone has to understand the rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Robert from Area 1.
think we all agree that it is important that teachers, students, and other district employees feel safe. Obviously, if teachers don't feel safe, they cannot teach. If students don't feel safe, they cannot learn. But I also want to make sure that we're not too quick to placing students on a path from which they can't come back. And we know, this is just based on data, that students of color tend to be disproportionately suspended and expelled. So how do we address that? I have a few ideas of my own. I believe we need to increase investment in school psychologists, in social and emotional counselors, and provide more supports for implementing restorative justice models. I've heard some critiques from folks that we implemented that model a little too quickly, so I want to make sure we're having consultations with our teachers in the classroom, our administrators, and other employees to make sure that we're providing the necessary training and support to implement that model successfully. And it's imperative, it's vital. We need to feel safe, but I also don't believe that increasing the harsh measures of expulsions and suspensions is going to get us there.
Thank you, Robert. Keisha.
Okay, so that's a two-part question for me because one portion deals with safety and how we can make sure that we're maximizing the things that we have to make sure our students and our teachers and our staff members feel safe, because we can't thrive without feeling safe. So the cameras, I agree with. The security, having relationships with our students is imperative, as well as the teachers. We need to know who these security people are and how they're put into place and where they are and what they're dealing with. I speak to my security people. When I come in the gate, I greet them in the morning and I talk to them in the afternoon. I speak to my students. I make sure that I know where their heads are. In terms of the restorative justice, I've played a part in that. And teachers, we have to implement that correctly for it to work. Sending students out of the classroom shouldn't just be sending them out because they have a pencil missing or their pants are sagging or I don't know, whatever. We have to send them out when it's absolutely necessary, and I don't believe in sending kids out. That's why my classroom management is impeccable. I treat my kids like they're mine. I call home to parents when I have trouble. And that is going to strengthen our system and lessen the amount of suspensions we have. When Johnny thinks that I'm calling mom at home, he changes everything. It's no longer a battle with him. So as long as we make restorative justice a little bit stronger, I think it'll be very helpful in our system.
Thank you, Keisha. Valerie, we'll start with Area 3.
Thank you. I want to thank the student from Roosevelt that asked the question of safety. I had two daughters that graduated from Roosevelt High School. Safety is two-part. It's not just safe at a school, but safe inside. Some kids are bullied, some kids have cyberbullying, and kindness is something that we need to really work on. In a middle school, we have what they call WEB, where everyone belongs. And there's programs, and they try to get the kids, connected with something and get connected with adults. At Sunnyside High School, we have 96 different clubs that teachers volunteer to help with, and that helps nurture and make students feel safe. Link Crew is something we do at high schools, and it tries to get the kids all linked up and try to make them feel safe and belong and participate. Restorative justice is important. We have training in the Sunnyside region, and we've spent $1 million to help our staff learn all of that training. But also with training with teachers, we've had the implicit bias training. We're not perfect. We have biases, and teachers that work with our students, I hope they're not letting a student put their head down in despair and not getting them some help or getting some support to them. But I think kindness and the way we behave in public as adults on this board is important to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Carl?
I think we have programs, but I think we need infrastructure. We need lower class sizes so that the kids have more value with their teacher because they're looked upon as more individuals. I have taught alternative ed for 12 years. I know my kids. I know their immigration status, their parents' immigration status. I know where they work, where they do their homework. When I first started alternative ed, one of my seniors was murdered by one of my 9th graders. Since then, I had about 3 other kids murdered, okay, and do some murdering. Okay, this is the extreme. This is where it can go. Okay, we need to start from when the kids are in kindergarten. We need to be able to identify by the signs that are there, and there's plenty of signs, so that they can interact with the people who will care about them, with school psychologists, with other paraeducators, and we need to make sure that they know how to read. If they're in a class in the 2nd or 3rd grade, they're going to be frustrated and they're going to act out. And all the kids who are kind of a little antsy will join them. And then all of a sudden, teachers can't teach. Okay, we don't need to be kicking kids out. We need to have them in. They're going to get enough of a adult to them ratio when they're in the criminal justice system if we don't watch what we're doing. And we need to use programs, yes, but we need to have it in place. We need to have the classrooms that are for them, and we need to have differentiated learning for them. We need to have more of these types of schools.
Thank you, Carl.
For the individual needs.
Thank you so much. And lastly, Mark.
Hello. As my own experience in life, we have 2 ears and we have 1 mouth. We need to listen to our kids. We need to listen to the safety personnel around the schools. If there's something going on, if they hear something, we need to know about it. If there are reasons to feel unsafe as a student, I look at myself. There were a few times during my time in school that I had problems with somebody. You need to be able to talk to, hopefully you can talk it out with your friends. But if you can't, then you need to be able to feel like you can go to someone in the administration, adults, a teacher that you trust. We all had a teacher that we know or that we could feel like we could talk to. If we don't have our parents, that we can feel like we can talk to them. We also need to understand that we have the real world out there, because when we get out of school, we're not going to have all these pampering things that we keep talking about here. The real world is a tough, rough world. And you can't just, what are you going to do, get pampered all your life? That's just not going to happen. The real world is a rough place, and we need to be prepared for that and prepare our kids, the students, to be ready for the real world when they graduate from Fresno schools.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Please, you can go ahead and applause now. Have applause now. Well, while there are many stakeholders that are involved in our schools thriving, you've heard from 2 of the lifeblood entities here, parents and students. But of course, our schools are also nothing without amazing educators. And so we have prepared a question, and an educator is here to ask that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Darchuk. I am a 1st grade teacher at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School in the Edison region, also known as King. Go Pharaohs. And this is my 5th year teaching elementary school. And my question for you, speaking of 5, is Fresno Unified's 5-year goals will expire this year. As a board member responsible for approving new district goals, what do you believe is the most important goal that the district can set, and why does that goal matter to you?
Thank you, Michelle. We're going to start with Mr. De La Cerda.
The goal that I think has been most important to me since I got on the board is equity. Because if we don't have that sense of equity in what we're doing with our children across the district, we're not going to be able to allow our children to feel like that we respect them, that we appreciate them. In my years in the school district, as a child of the district, I grew up in West Fresno. We didn't have a middle school for 34 years. We finally placed one there. That was a big hurdle. But I saw being transported to North Fresno what existed as the inequities, the way that I was treated, what I saw when I went to other schools. So my push has been from the very beginning that we look at bringing what is the amenities of one school, like this school here, what works best, what makes it strong, should be something that is sent across all our regions of our district. Because until we reach that point where we are equitable in our spending and in our teaching, and until we let our students know that, we are going to continue to fail the needs of our students. We're going to continue to have these discussions where we're asking, why don't we have this? Why can't we get that? Why are our students failing? Because I worked at Sunnyside when it was a brand new school, and I saw the impact that just having a new school had, not only on the students, but on the community. And we saw such a positive impact with our students. So for me, the number one thing that I would address is the equity issue that we've seen continue in our district.
Mrs. Islas?
Well, I would agree that one of our challenge is the inequitable educational outcomes that we have been seeing for quite some time. Measures of increasing graduation rates are not measures that prove that we are graduating students that are prepared to enter the workforce or to succeed in college. So we need to look at the duality of things that are happening. We can say that we're improving restorative justice practice because we're reducing suspension rates. But that doesn't really mean that we're better serving those students. So for me, one of the ultimate goals that we need to work towards is definitely preparing our children to succeed in life. That we are working to keep our children in school so that they can learn. I believe that advancing equity means that we are advancing students who are going to be able to participate in our community, students who are being loved and valued will turn into adults that know how to love and know how to value. So I think that those investments would be really important for us to strive to achieve in our community. I think we need to be making sure, again, that all of our children feel like they are safe and that they belong. So regardless of their sexual identity or their gender identity or their religion or their immigration status, that should be paramount for all of us on the school board.
Thank you, and to the educator that asked the question, I too have been a first grade, second grade, kindergarten teacher, so I can relate with you. We'll talk later. But I do want to say that one of the important goals that we do have right now in our district goals is that we're preparing students to be competent and to be prepared for the workplace, because we only have them for a season. But we want them to enjoy their life and to become what they have wanted to become. I have a passion for that because I was honored to do that. I knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be when I grew up, as I would ask my children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we need to be there as support to them. We cannot do it without community, and we cannot do it without the community. And that's everyone. That's the school community, that's the outside community. All of us do our part. All of us have our part. And if we're not at the table, though, that's a problem. I will make sure that we're all at the table, because we do need to do more listening. We need to get the perspectives and to be able to have people that are willing to come to the table. And not everyone is. So there are ways that we also need to make sure that we are encouraging folks to come give their opinions, to give their input, as well as one of our goals in the department is empowering and engaging parents.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. Great question. I think that the most important goal we have is to ignite the love of learning in our students. If we can ignite the love of learning in our students, that is something that they can carry with them for the rest of their lives. I'm somebody where education has made the difference. I grew up in poverty, and I believe that education is the path out of poverty. And if we can teach our kids to love learning, that is a skill that they can take with them in their next step, whether that's a career, technical pathway or a college pathway. One of the things I hear most when I knock on doors and talk to our educators and our families is that kids are bored, and our teachers know that the way that we're asking them as a district to teach isn't working. They're like, we went to school to be teachers, we're professionals, and we're told we can't teach in the way and in the pace that we know will work for students. And I think that is part of what we need to correct in our district. And so the goal I would like to set is, to ignite that love of learning and to let our teachers teach again.
Ms. Crabian.
Okay. So when I got started and I decided to run to be trustee, I really started to dive into the numbers and really look at where our region, the Bullard region, is as far as achievement. And what I found was there was a huge disconnect between our graduation rate and our students and how they've met standards. So our students that graduated this year, it was a shock to me that 80% of them did not meet math standards and more than 50% did not meet English language arts. And although those numbers are horrible, I really think that we need to work on achievement through accountability and transparency, which I think is really the key. And I think that starts with the board. Because I really believe that, these numbers didn't come out of left field. Those numbers have built over time. And really, it is the responsibility of a trustee. And I believe that when you start to see a pattern of slipping achievement, that you need to go to your superintendent, go to your district, and ask what is happening. We need to get a plan for improvement and not just talk about that there is a problem and we're working on it. So my goal would be improving the achievement.
Mr. Sladek.
As a candidate, I've looked at the platforms, the things we're discussing right here for the last several election cycles, the ones I was able to find. And it's always this, parity this, equity that, move this number up, move that number down. Every time, every 2 years, it's the same stuff. So going back to some of the previous topics, I want to know why. This is the accountability thing. Why are we still having these same discussions of raising that number, lowering that number, meeting this new metric? Well, it's the same metrics from 12 years ago, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago. So I want somebody who's down at the district or the principals, the administration, who make these decisions. They are accountable to the board. Okay, there's a state law that says that every person who works at FUSD is reportable to the trustees of the district. So it's not just that we supervise the superintendent, everyone is reportable to us in a way, shape, or form. So going back to the accountability thing is, why are we still having this discussion 10 years later, 12 years later? That's what's going to change when these folks are being held accountable for these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuentes.
An important goal and one of my 3 priorities, if I were elected to the school board, would be education equity. And I'm glad that many of us up here have discussed it because I think it's vital, and it's an issue that is national. It's not limited to Fresno. But there are things we could do at the local level and things that the district has started to do to try to close that achievement gap. For instance, I am glad that the district started the African American Academic Acceleration Initiative. I would like to continue to invest more in that program and I would like to establish clearer metrics to make sure that we are achieving our goals. I am glad that the district has started to expand dual language immersion programs, and I would like to continue to expand because we know that that is one of the primary ways to increase the most quickly English proficiency levels. And as I discussed earlier, I would like to invest more in social emotional supports, both by expanding the number of school psychologists and social emotional counselors on campus, and also by increasing our partnerships with community-based organizations and community health clinics. Because we know that many of our students are dealing with significant stressors outside the classroom. And if we're not addressing those stressors, then they won't be able to succeed within the classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
So I give a hands up to my Martin Luther King teacher because that is my alma mater. That is the school that I went to. And let me just say that that's where my mother planted the seed for me to go to college. We lived in the projects, and so I would be able to walk across the grass to the campus and go to my class. On my first day of school, my mother told me, "We're walking this way today. This is how you go home. When you go to college, you will not have me to walk with you." And that is something that resonates in my mind over and over again. Now, let me tell you this, it wasn't equity back then. There was no equity because we didn't even have a lunchroom. We sat outside for a long time under, they had covers, and we sat out there and we ate lunch. Breakfast and lunch was held there, and sometimes we got a sack lunch after school program. So I would like to make sure that our schools in our area, there is equity across the board, whether that means the buildings, the after-school programs, the African American Initiative program that was put out. I put my own son in that program because I wanted to know how it worked. You don't know something unless you try it. And the program actually had an 85% turnout rate of parents, which is huge. Parents would come in, they'd find out how their students was doing, and they'd leave. But they came, and children grew at about 5 months growth in reading. My son grew, which is amazing.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello? Yeah, we're on. Thank you. That's a great question. I believe we made those goals back in 2007, 7 or 8. So my goal would be your goal. I'd like to go on a listening tour and find out what you would like to do. We did have staff in the room. We did have some community people that tried to shape. We had never done that in Fresno Unified before. We'd never said, this is what our community wants to see. This is what we want to do. And I want to thank the teacher from Martin Luther King Elementary. I worked there in 1980, in the 80s. Daisy Ray Aldridge was the principal. But it's important. We treat our children with respect. Whenever I meet a student, I treat them with respect because I figure in the next year or two, they will be the head of the household. And many of our children are speaking for their parents. They're translating for their parents. They are the head of the household. And so, you know, your goals, my goals. I always tell students, start where you are. Start where you are. Use what you have and do your very best. So I would like to hear from you. What do you see for bringing this district into the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it takes? I grew up here. I was born and raised in Fresno. My parents graduated from Edison High School. My children grew up here.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
We love it.
Mr. Diaz.
Thank you. Well, that was 2005 when she was talking about. That's been a long time. Okay, these issues are still around, so it's been a while. My mom taught at Martin Luther King School, and she gave me the opportunity to go to a summer school program in between 6th and 7th grade there, and I saw the inequity there, and I see it now. I see it in the schools on that side. My son went to Computech. And when we were there, I didn't see any kids from the neighborhood in that school. I didn't see teachers that looked like kids in that school. For me, it was like, you might as well just, why'd they take the bus all the way to Computech? They could just stayed where they were at. No, we need role models. Our kids need role models. And with some of the role models that I've seen in this last week is, I had an opportunity to go to Fresno State to go to the NAACP Student Variety Show, and they had a forum for some of us, and all of us were invited, but I was the only one from the Sunnyside area to go. These are kids that should be embraced and applauded and brought into our schools to talk to the kids and to say things like, this is how I did it, you could do it too. Okay, we need to have our community truly be part of this this process to make the inequity equal. We need to have a balance, and we need to do it now,
Mr.
not in
Diaz.
2005.
Mr. Ratchford.
Hi. Number one, one of the biggest problems we have is the 20% are at grade level when they graduate. When you get out of school, if you're not ready for the world, you're going to be very disappointed, you're going to be very frustrated. As I walked around and talked to people that are in our area, if you can't read and write, you're going to have a very hard time. You can't understand what you're reading, contracts that you have to sign, being able to work for a company work in someone's home. Not everyone is a college kind of person. There are a lot of people that, like myself, I am in the plumbing, water conditioning, and purification business. I am not a college guy. We need to bring everyone together. I kind of keep hearing this, we're all different thing. We're all Americans. That's what I look at us all as. We are part of this community, and I look at everyone here as part of our community and an American. And that's what this country is all about, is we melt together and we become an American citizen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys can applaud for their answers. Thank you so much. Everyone's done such a great job on staying in the time. Thank you so very much for doing that. And so now we have time for closing statements. So no doubt about it, everybody will remember your answers to your questions and those things that, were pointed out, no doubt about it. But in the end, what do you want parents and stakeholders who are here tonight to remember about you and what you're going to do for kids in Fresno Unified School District? You have 60 seconds to share all of that, so I know you'll be able to do that. But seriously, this is your kind of your period, your final statement of what you had to say tonight. And so we look forward to hearing from you during a 60-second period. So we're going to begin with Area 7 this time. And Terry, would you get us kicked off? Thank you.
Uh-oh. Hello? I was so confused. Me, Terry. Just wait your turn, Terry. I am really excited to be here. I want to thank you guys for this opportunity, and to the community as well. The fact that you are out here tonight and you could be doing other things is proof that there is hope in Fresno Unified, that you care about what goes on. I've always had a mantra, a saying that I believe in, that is, not to know is bad, not to want to know is worse, not to try is unthinkable, but not to care is unforgivable. So I want you to know that I am in the lane that I need to be in as an educator. I come from the classroom as a student to the boardroom. And that is a role model for our students as well. And I just believe that there's a time for all of the issues that need to come to us, that we make the time for you, and that your voice is heard, and I will ensure that that happens.
Thank you, Terry. Nasreen.
Thank you so much for your patience. I see a lot of kids in the audience, and so thank you for sitting through this. We're all here because of you. I entered this race. Tomorrow will be 1 year since I filed my first paper to become a candidate in order to serve the community. And since then, I've been working to connect with community members and to put in the work that our schools need so that I can make an impact. And I want you to know that I'm committed to serving our students, and I will do what it takes. I will put in the sweat equity. I will answer my phone at all hours. I commit to serving you because I don't take this position lightly. I thought a good 6 to 8 months before I even filed that first paperwork. So please connect with me. My details are in the packet of paper. And if you're in the Bullard area, please vote for Nasreen Michelle Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasreen. Amanda.
So first I want to thank our hosts for allowing us all to be here and share our thoughts this evening. So thank you, and thank you to the audience and stakeholders, everyone that's out here tonight. I would like to leave all of you, when you think of Amanda Carabian, you think of 3 things. The first is what I stand for is your voices, the voices of our families, educators, and our community members need to be heard, need to be at that table in the boardroom, and need to be part of the process. I have committed in my campaign to be endorsement neutral, which basically means that I am not accepting any endorsement that is requiring me to accept a pledge or to put an entity or organization before the voices of my constituents. And that is my commitment, that your voice will come first. I also have a belief that our school board members...
Thank you, Amanda.
The end.
Thank you. Terry.
Your children and my children are the future of Fresno. It's that simple to me. Okay, I picked this town to raise them and have them. I want to impart, as a trustee to FUSD, a sense of urgency that they've never had. We've already heard tonight a reference to programs that we knew that were imperfect that we're going to do, and we'll just fix them. There's too much of that going on. I've had kids at Bullard High School now for 10 years, and not one of them, including the senior right now, has had a high school that's not under construction. Do we really have to do that to our kids? And this is just 2 little examples. So the sense of urgency does not exist to my satisfaction at Fresno Unified or at the schools that my kids have attended. I want that to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Robert from Area 1.
I was born here in Fresno and attended schools here in Fresno and throughout the valley. And I didn't grow up wealthy, far from it, but I always had the mindset that I could do anything that I set my mind out to do. And I had that mindset because of the support from my parents, my teachers, and my community. So I went on to obtain my undergraduate degree from Stanford and a master's in public administration from Harvard. And then I came back to Fresno with a desire to serve the community that raised me. I believe that we in Fresno need to free ourselves of the mindset that a district where the overwhelming majority of students are either low income, students of color, English language learners, or in the foster care system, that a district such as ours is destined to not excel. We can excel, and it starts today by increasing our partnerships with parents and educators and by increasing our partnerships with the community at large. So I am excited about this campaign. I'm excited about the future of Fresno Unified, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Robert. Keisha, also from Area 1.
I get really excited when we start talking about why I'm doing this, because I have been a product of Fresno Unified. My parents were a product of Fresno Unified. My grandmother worked at Fresno Unified. My children were great products of Fresno Unified who have gone on to college also. I have my master's in education, and that has been my walk the whole time. I am here to advocate and fight for my kids and what they need in this school district. That is why I'm here. I advocate for my kids in the classroom, and I advocate for them outside the classroom. I am building leaders. That is my goal. My students get out there and walk precincts with me. My goal is to build leaders and to help our board make Fresno Unified excellent. We should be an excellent school district, and we should be #1 in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha. Valerie will start us off for Area 3.
Thank you. At Sunnyside High School, we have a saying, be proud of who you are and what you represent. You represent yourself, your family, and your school. These are words that our children learn in the entire Sunnyside region. I'm proud of who I am. I was raised here, born here. I'm proud of what I represent. I represent the Sunnyside area. And I'm very proud of people in this room tonight. One, a former student of my husband's, and one, a very generous family who have donated $1 million to see that our children succeed. And I want to thank them for being here tonight. And I will always behave and honor where I come from and what I do for as long as there's breath in me. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Carl, also from Area 3.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I, too, am proud to be from Fresno and to have a father who served in World War II and Korea, and a mother who taught in Fresno and raised us all. But I'm also proud to say that this is America. And if you're a new person who comes to America, it is your home as well. And we need to work for you as well, as hard as anybody else who's been here for a long time. We are all immigrants. We are dreamers. We need to begin to work together, be it Laotians, Hmong, Latinos, Caucasian, everyone. We need to work together to bring up all the people who are at risk, because when you bring the people who are at risk up and you have the capacity to bring up all the vulnerable kids that I see every day on our side of town, then you're bringing everybody up. We need to work very hard for the children of this area, and we also need to make sure that everything is equal, and we can do it.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Mark, also from Area 3.
Thank you for being here again, and thank you for the opportunity. I have been in business for a long time, 25 years. I've been in the water conditioning business. It's given me a lot. I am giving back to my community. I put $25,000 of my own money into this so I could run and be effective in this race. Valerie's been around 14 years. We need a change. She also supported some questionable things as a president of the board when she was on the board as a president. Mr. Hansen comes to mind. So we need to get some changes here, and that's why I have come in to represent Area 3 and to make everyone on our board accountable to our parents and our children, of course. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Chris will start us off for Area 4.
For 34 years, education has not just been my career, it's been my vocation. I've always made it my focus to make the best decisions based on what our kids need. I've always reached out to communities and asked them what they feel that is best for their children. I will continue to do that, and I'm committed to doing that as I remain on the board. And I've made that commitment so much so that I don't have another job. I've chosen not to take another job because I think it's important. This job requires full attention. I'm not splitting my time with another job. This is not a launching pad for another career or going up higher up on the political food chain. I think your children deserve that attention. And I think your children deserve that we focus on the needs. And that's what I've done in the past 6 years. There's a litany of things I can go over that we've done, but it would be too long, and I only have 10 seconds to do it in. But we've done safety, pre-K, dual immersion, our Hmong programs, on. And it's all been focused on children. So I appreciate your support and your vote.
Thank you, Chris. Veva, also running in Area 4.
Yes, thank you. It has been an honor to be here with you, and I'm very grateful for those of you that stayed to the end. Thank you so much. When students succeed, our communities thrive. The stark truth is that 2 out of every 3 students in Fresno Unified is not at grade level in English language arts, and more than 3 out of every 4 students at Fresno Unified is not at grade level in math. That is the truth. You can't put rose-colored glasses and interpret that as some success. I'm running because I believe education is cornerstone to advancing equity and justice in our community. And I believe that we need decision makers on the school board who are willing to stand up and take action for our students and our community. I'm not afraid to speak the truth or to fight for justice. I'm not running because I have ambitions for higher office, but because I have ambitions to be of service to my community. I was born in Fresno, I was educated in Fresno, and I'm committed undeniably to serving my community.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for coming this evening, and thank you to all of you, the community, who's spent their time here this evening listening and making an educated, so that you can make an educated decision on November 6th. Is that right? November 6th. Because of you, we help demonstrate our power as a community of people, and we have hope for our children. Shareable versions that are corrected of tonight's questionnaire will be shared tomorrow through an email to everyone who had registered their email through the Eventbrite page. If you want to correct your email, please make sure you do that at the registration table. And if you would please, if you're using interpretation devices, return those to the interpretation table. And thank you, and have a good evening.